Welcome back, guys. I'm Jaquez, better known as Linux Anape. I'm your host, and we're picking up in our migration series, and we're on part three. All right. So let's just go over what we've done so far. So we've created a virtual machine in Azure that is running out of Germany. We named it, we gave it a custom domain so we can log in pretty easily when it comes down to remote desktop. So we were able to log into our Windows Server 2022 operating system that we have running on this virtual machine, and we were able to config and set up all the configuration files for Active Directory to run on this virtual machine. So I say we've got a lot done so far. So why don't we go ahead, pick up the pace, let's keep it going, and we're going to start on part three. So part three is going to be fun because we're going to configure our DNS settings, and then we're going to fully complete the migration from Active Directory to Azure, known as now Entra ID. All right, so without further ado, let's get started. All right, so first we want to go ahead and configure these DNS settings. All right, so let's go to DNS, let's go to our domain, let's go to forwarders, right? So let's go here to the IP address, let's edit it. For the sake of testing purposes and for the sake of this video, we're going to edit this IP to reflect 8.8.8.8, which is going to be the Google DNS, as you can see. DNS.Google, it popped right up. We know it's communicating now, which is great. All right, so let's click apply and let's click OK. And if y'all remember in the previous video, we created a number of groups. Well, we created one group, the developer group, and we created a user and we added that user to that group. So what we're going to do now is we're going to close this out. All right, so now we're going to get this prepared for the migration. So let's minimize this. Let's come over here to our web browser. All right. And while that's pulling up, just want to show you guys this. So let's come home and let's go to our users. And we have users that were created in the cloud already before we began this. As you can see, we have a field that's called on-premises sync enabled. As you can see, no is the selection for all of these particular users. So we know these users were not created in the on-premises Active Directory. They were created in the Microsoft Entra ID client. So that's how you can keep up with, well, who got migrated, who was already in the client. It's very important to know those things. All right. And you'll see why at another time. So let's go ahead and go back in our virtual machine. Let's get the internet pulled up. All right, so now what we are looking for is Microsoft Entra Connect download. Okay, as you can see, you can go right to Microsoft and we can get that downloaded. Formerly known as Azure AD Connect, of course. All right. It's very simple. Like I said, this is a very sought after skill to have. So it can only help you by learning how to go through these particular steps. Of course, there are plenty of more details that go into this. Right now, we're just focusing on the concept itself. All right. Now, another thing to throw in, you want to make sure you install this on your virtual machine that you created. All right. So now we have the client pulled up. I agree. Let's continue. All right, so for the sake of the video and for the sake of time, we're going to use the express settings. All right, this can be customized and configured to whatever the business needs. But right now, we're going to go with the default express settings for the sake of time. So let's use express settings. So now we're going to make this window a bit smaller. All right, so now as you can see, it's asking to connect to Microsoft Entra ID. Enter your Microsoft Entra ID Hybrid Identity Administrator, which is preferred, going by the principle of least privilege, of course, or your global administrator credentials. So in this case, we have a global administrator. All right. Mr. Elon Musk that I created here in the video. So, well, let me start you all the way from the beginning. So you can go to Entra ID, come over here to users, and once your users get pulled up, you see you have your user here. And let's verify if this user has the global administrator privileges or not. So once you get into his account, you can come over here to assigned roles. And as you can see, we have the global administrator role assigned to this particular user. So that's great. So he's going to need to be the one to use his credentials to initiate this migration. All right. So let's go back to overview. Let's go ahead and copy his email, right? So it's going to be some more configuration that you're going to see here in a second. But let's go ahead and enter his username. All right. And let's click next. As you can see, it's communicating. Now we need to sign in using our Entra ID credentials. So you want to click continue through that. Let's give it a second while it populates. All right. May take a second to populate. Let me go ahead and pause the recording. I'll check back in once it comes up. All right. So when you're prompted with this window here, you're going to want to add, as you can see, it's being blocked. Firewall settings are configured. So for the sake of time, let's just go ahead and add these particular websites so they can get past the firewall. See, we have another one. Let's add that one as well. All right. So now we want to close it out. Let's go back in. And as you can see, we're prompted to sign in with our Entra ID credentials. All right. From someone with the hybrid identity administrator role or the global administrator role. All right. So click next. Let's go ahead and enter the password. All right. And it's going to finish going through the process of signing me all the way in. All right. Now we have to connect to the on-prem Active Directory credentials. Now, these question marks are always a great help. So as you can see, it says, provide the credentials of an enterprise administrator for your Active Directory. So if you remember, when we created the user previously, we added him to the enterprise administrator group. All right. So we're going to go ahead, get his credentials, and then we're going to use those to log in, and then we're going to proceed with the migration. All right, so we have the user that we created as a part of the enterprise admin group on the on-premises Active Directory, John Smith. So we want to start with the domain that we created, which was dirk.ds/john.smith, followed by his password. So let's go ahead and click next. As you can see, everything was authenticated properly. So as you can see, we're faced with this prompt. So just for the sake of time and the sake of continuity, we're going to continue without matching all UPN suffixes. All right. So we're going to click next. All right. And as you can see, start the synchronization process when configuration completes. We have password hash synchronization. Pretty much the whole process is going to go ahead and complete itself now. So without further ado, let's click install. Now, as we know, this can take some time. So I'm going to pause the recording and come back when it's completed. And we're going to make sure that it worked properly. All right. All right, guys. So it looks like our configuration was complete. So let's go over to Azure and let's see if it reflects the changes. So first we want to start with users. All right. Let's come over here to the users. And as you can see, John Smith has been added, as well as the on-prem directory synchronization service account has been added as well. And as you can see, when you look at the on-prem sync option over here, enabled. As you can see, we have yes, we have yes. And if you go to John Smith's properties, see that he inherited the domain name of this particular tenant. All right. See that the mail nickname came over. Yes, and you see all the on-prem configuration shows. So that way you can keep up with the fact that this was someone that came from an on-prem environment. Now the next thing we want to do, let's go over the groups. Let's make sure that the groups synced properly. And the group that we created was developer. And as you can see, developer here was added properly. All right. As you can see, the source Windows Server AD, security, everything that we configured in Active Directory reflects here. Looks like we have one total member, so let's take a look at who that member is. And it is none other than John Smith, which we created in Active Directory. So we completed the migration successfully, which, like I said, is a very sought after skill in the industry, so it can't hurt to know how to do these things. All right. So that pretty much wraps up the end of this series on how to complete a migration. The next series, we're probably going to do a sync. So that's going to reflect any changes made in Active Directory. It's going to automatically sync to Azure AD. So that's going to be our next series. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, any comments, please leave them in the comments section. Once again, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you guys for tuning in. And I'll see you next time.